Universal Marketing, çağdaş ürünler sunar.
İnsan beslenmesi vücut yapısı için çok önemlidir. Vücudumuz içindeki her bir hücre besin maddeleriyle beslenerek gelişir, sinir sistemi, kas yapısı, kemik yapısının ayakta durmasını sağlayan tek şey besin maddeleri ve bunların içindeki vitaminler ve diğer bileşiklerdir. Dünyadaki birçok besin maddeleri değişik cins vitaminler içerir. Ancak alınan her vitamin vücut içinde mutlaka %100 kullanılamaz. Amerikalı bir grup bilim adamı insan hücresini direkt olarak besleyen, özellikle hücrenin ihtiyacı olan ve %100'ü eminebilen besinler üzerinde bir çalışma başlattılar. Yapılan çalışmalarda Tayland'ın Siam Vadisi'nde yetişen ve yetiştiği çok özel doğal koşullar sebebiyle inanılmaz karakteristik özelliklere sahip olan kahverengi pirinç içinde bulunan polisakarit ve polipeptitlerin insan hücresini en iyi şekilde beslediğini ve alfa glukan yapısıyla genetik yapıya etki ederek ilaç tedavisiyle birlikte her türlü hastalıkta iyileşme sürecini hızlandırdığını gördüler. Bugün dünya genelinde milyonlarca kişi bu ürünü kullanarak inanılmaz sonuçlar aldılar.
Günümüzün hastalığından olan depresyonun belirli şikayetleri vardır. Bu şikayetler arasında bilhassa bizim Türk toplumunda ilgilendirici konular arasında somatik belirtiler arasında yorgunluk, halsizlik, iştahsızlık, çabuk yorulma, konsantrasyon bozukluğu gibi şikayetler ortaya çıkmaktadır. Glüks hormonu dediğimiz mutluluk hormonları arasındaki serotonin mesela bilhassa depresyonda çok önemli rol alan bir şeydir. Az olması kişinin biraz önce saymış olduğum belirtileri belirgin bir tarzda ortaya çıkarabilecek güce sahiptir. Mutluluk hormonunu, serotonini alabilmek için faydalandığımız ürünler arasında muz, çileğin yanı sıra pirinç ve pirinç türleri de bulunmaktadır.
Is it important for people to take alpha rice for the future?
Absolutely. We want to stay younger, we want to slow down the aging process, and we want to make our bodies nice and strong with the immune system. So to help prevent future conditions, alpha rice is very, very important.
What are the effects of alpha rice on the body?
It energizes the cells, it supercharges the cells, which helps us fight the free radicals and slows down the aging process. Also helps prevent a lot of conditions like cancer, hepatitis, diabetes, high cholesterol.
As a concern to many people can be taken during a medication treatment, are there any side effects?
It's highly recommended to take your medication, your drug medication prescription, an hour before or an hour after taking alpha rice. There is not any side effects because it is considered a whole food complex. It is not a supplement.
Can it be used on children under normal conditions?
For children and for babies, the dosage would be in half the dosage. It's very important for children and babies to have the alpha rice, the polysaccharide polypeptides, because it keeps their immune systems nice and strong and healthy.
What are the effects on alpha rice on diabetic?
Because the polysaccharide, which is part of the polysaccharide polypeptide of alpha rice, has a slow amount of glucose that's incorporated into the body, it brings the insulin level down to normal. So if people continue taking the alpha rice, can see their numbers go back down to normal, and in most cases even reduce their medication.
There are countless diseases due to cell deformation in many people.
If we keep the cells nice and strong and healthy, which the alpha rice will do, we call it supercharging cellular energy. We can keep the cells nice and round and healthy. It can help prevent bacteria, viruses, any other effects that are incorporated in the body from actually affecting and worsening the conditions.
It is common that fact the pollution and food additive accelerate aging.
It does, that's a true factor. For pollution creates free radicals in the body, which destroy the cells and speeds up the aging process. Food additives have a tendency of what they call neurotoxins, which are poison to the brain. So taking the alpha rice helps prevent that. If we could live in a toxic-free world, then we wouldn't have to worry so much, but unfortunately wherever we live all over the world, there's pollution and there's additives in the foods and the preservatives and chemicals in the food, so we definitely need to take the alpha rice to help balance that out.
Can you tell me about the usage for children?
It's very important for children to take it, and the dosage usually would be like a half a teaspoon a day, depending on what type of condition. To help strengthen the immune system, a half a teaspoon a day would be sufficient.
As Dr. Charge is this product, how much should be used in each? How many times?
Typically, for our daily maintenance, 1 teaspoon a day on an empty stomach, preferably in the morning with warm or hot water would be the best way. If we're working with different conditions like cancer, like leukemia, like hepatitis, HIV, we want to do 3 or 4 teaspoons a day.
What is the difference between this product and vitamins supplements?
The alpha rice is a polysaccharide polypeptide, which is a whole food complex, as opposed to a supplement that could be synthetically made. This is naturally made through Mother Nature. It helps feed the cells the energy that it needs and helps pull out the toxins out of the cells.
We see that the powder particles in alpha rice are very small. How could you do that?
There's a proprietary process that is made by the manufacturer to make the particles so small that they actually will penetrate on a cellular level 100%. There are other products on the market that do not have this process and are not able to give the same benefit that alpha rice does.
Polypeptide in alpha rice from the others.
Okay. Polysaccharide is your carbohydrate, your glucose, your polypeptide is your protein amino acids. There is a particular process that is made to make the particles so small they actually will penetrate on the cellular level 100%. There are other forms of polysaccharide polypeptides, but their benefit is only about maybe 75–80%. So get the full benefit from a whole food complex with the polysaccharide polypeptide is the alpha rice as a solution.
Lastly, is this a miracle for people having disease?
Mother Nature has given us the perfect food, the polysaccharide polypeptide from alpha rice, and to help prevent any diseases, conditions, help slow down the aging process, for Alzheimer's and all the other different conditions that our body can get as we get older. This is a perfect food, not a supplement, but this is a perfect food for us to take to help prevent the future problems and to keep the immune system nice and strong and healthy.
Thank you for the information provided to us. If you have any other remark, please mention it.
I would hope that everybody would be on the alpha rice, because if we still think that we have a strong immune system, it's important to keep that immune system nice and strong. I have found through years of working with patients that if they continue taking the alpha rice, that they won't be getting the conditions like the flu, the different viruses, the bacteria. We talked about the pollutants, the food additives that are in the food, all this poison that's around us. We can help prevent that and help keep our bodies nice and strong and healthy. Keep them in balance.
Hello, I'm Dr. Mark Smith, Chairman of the Board and founder of the University of Natural Medicine. I've been in clinical practice in holistic and integrated medicine for over 25 years. I'm also a clinical researcher for the developer of a product called Alpha Rice. Today I would like to share with you this incredible product and how it's creating a revolution in the paradigm of medicine itself. It all comes down to cellular nutrition. If you haven't heard that term, you're going to hear more and more about it in the future, because the foremost scientists in the world are realizing that everything happens on the cellular level. Now, this particular food, as I'm going to be talking about today, we call it a functional food, provides the essential ingredients, the materials for the cell to function to its optimal level. Now, we're all talking about looking for health and happiness. We're going to do what we can in life, because without that, what do we have? We can have all the riches in the world, but if we don't have health and we don't have happiness, what's our life truly about? In order to maintain health, we have to have what's called homeostasis. Homeostasis is a combination of different conditions. We're talking about a balanced blood cholesterol, balanced blood sugar, having the right body temperature. We don't want to be too hot, too cold. There's this constant regulatory process going on. But even more important than that are the electrolytes and also pH balance. Our body's going through this perpetual regulating of all of these different conditions in order that we can maintain optimal health. With that, everybody can be happy. There's a problem, though. In today's modern lifestyle, our body cells tend to degenerate faster than we normally age. This is called degeneration. Our cells are subjected to possible injuries by toxic agents such as heavy metals, chemicals, man-made products called xenobiotics. Now, what most people don't know today is that only 15% of disease today is related to pathogenic microorganisms, such as the viruses, the bacteria, the fungi, and the yeasts. 80 to 85% of degenerative disease today is related to what are called metabolic imbalances. Now, you know what those are? Those are directly related to cellular function and the nutrients that the cell utilizes for optimal health. There's a new condition which has been around, that has been identified, which has basically been around for eons. It is the basis or the precursor to all of these, what we were just mentioned as 80 to 85% of degenerative disease today. It's called Syndrome X, or metabolic syndrome. What happens here, if the cells cannot utilize nutrients to an accumulation in the body of waste products, whereby serious metabolic conditions such as what is called hyperinsulinemia may develop. This condition, which is Syndrome X, is often the root cause of these 80% of disease today, including neurological diseases such as Alzheimer's. We could go through them: cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, practically any condition we're talking about that exists in humans today can be related to this metabolic syndrome. Your body produces billions of new cells. These are constantly being regenerated. Some of these for growth, while others replace those that die, including the brain cells. Now, don't believe that people tell you that you cannot regenerate brain cells. We can. There was a study done at Princeton University recently that actually finally proved that to science, that we do regenerate brain cells. So what is it about these cells? Well, let's look at some of the functions. They feed our body. They regulate our body. They cleanse and detoxify our body. They defend us against outside invaders and microorganisms, and they repair the different functions of the body and the cells themselves. And research is now showing, and there's much more focus on it today than ever before, that if you provide your body, and particularly your cells, with the proper optimal nourishment at the cellular level, you can improve the body's overall functions and performance. So that's what we want to find, is the right ingredients, the right source of what the cell needs. Now, what does the cell need? It needs carbohydrates, polysaccharides, the right form of sugars. What study done at is either Cambridge or Oxford, I don't remember which one, actually showed that the cells in our body have the capability of accepting or rejecting any nutrients that comes their way. So they know what's good and what isn't. They can actually shut down. They'll say, no, I don't want that. You know, it's genetically modified. I don't recognize it. It's hybridized. It's been processed, and so I no longer recognize it as a food. We've got to have the right proteins, amino acids, peptides. The peptides form the amino acids to form the proteins. Those are the building blocks. Those are what send the messages through the DNA to the RNA in the cell to get the new cells created that are healthy cells rather than degenerative cells. We also need vitamins and minerals, and of course, water. But most important of all this is the nutrients need to be digested to be utilized. If the cells aren't metabolizing them properly, guess what's going to happen? They're going to turn to toxins. Now, what's the solution? Well, there's a cellular food which helps rebuild your body at the cellular level. It's a functional food called alpha rice. Now, Dr. Martin Goldberg, he's an MD, very respectable, reputable MD in the United States. He termed functional food as a food that has a positive impact on an individual's health, physical performance, state of mind, in addition to its nutritive value. So beyond just getting nutrition, we want to have something that's functional, right? That's going to lead us to optimal health. Well, alpha rice is the right food for your cells. The key with alpha rice is it's readily assimilated and utilized by the body as a food and works to provide the required ATP, or energy that we've been talking about, and nutrients to the cells, thus preventing the impairment of this glucose energy metabolism, which, as we've been talking about, leads to Syndrome X. Alpha rice is the purest form of food for the cells known on the planet today. As I mentioned, I've been in practice for over 25 years now, and I have never seen anything that even comes close to being able to provide the essential nutrients that the cell needs for these functions. If we have healthy cells, we're going to have functional organs, a functional system, and optimal health. Well, why is alpha rice so unique? Well, scientists and researchers spent many years developing this proprietary technology, which means they're the only ones in the world who know how to produce this alpha rice, employing both a biotechnology and a microtechnology. Now, this was all natural. It does not use any chemicals, enzymes, totally natural process of being able to extract what are called the polysaccharides, which are basically the carbohydrates or the sugars, and the polypeptides, which we had mentioned are the key to amino acids which form the proteins. And these are from specially selected fractions of whole, non-hybrid, non-GMO native strains of rice that create this bioavailable form of the carbohydrates and amino acids that feed the cell directly. So what is alpha rice? Well, it goes through this mechanical hydrolysis and this micronization to create the polysaccharides, the polypeptides, minerals, antioxidants, which we're going to be talking about. The phytonutrients are contained within the plants, and some vitamins and minerals. Now, they don't provide all the vitamins and minerals the body needs. You still need to eat a well-balanced diet, and if necessary, you may need to take some supplementation too. But what this is the functional food for the cells themselves. That's what has to happen before you can even metabolize or utilize your foods or the other nutrients that you may consume. So where does alpha rice come from? As I mentioned, it comes from native strains of organically grown brown rice, short grain rice, and fragrant rice grown in the Siam Valley of Thailand. Now, what's so special about the Siam Valley of Thailand? For over 100,000 years, it's a natural organic mineral accumulation in this soil. It has been irrigated with water that is just rich and laden with spirulina, and we all know spirulina to have just a bountiful array of nutrients and minerals and vitamins and coenzymes. So it's been feeding this soil. Now the plants in this soil can just take these nutrients and readily utilize them to make a very, very, let's call it nutritious or very high content of nutrient factors. The other thing about it is that they actually harvest this rice at the optimal time when it has the highest level of nutrients, and that is one of the key factors as well. Now, this is a pure compound isolated from rice. Researchers who discovered alpha rice have successfully been able to combine Thai folk medicine. For many years, rice gruel was considered very beneficial for health in Thailand. And then they combined it with modern, sophisticated mechanical hydrolysis without, as I mentioned, using any enzymes, chemicals, or acids to obtain this powerful nutrient compound in the form of a pulverized functional food supplement. Now, why is it important that it's pulverized and micronized? We have to have the cell, in order for it to absorb these nutrients, they need to be broken down into a structure, a molecular structure that they can utilize. Now, if they're too small, such as nanonization, they get too flooded, which is what they're finding out. They thought nanonization was going to be the wave of the future. But you have to have a balance of these different sized molecules. So it's good to maintain it at about 1 to 300 level of micron particle size so that the cells can optimally absorb it and utilize it. This slide here just shows this pyramid-shaped structure of the alpha rice itself. And as I mentioned, the average size is 200 to 300 microns, which is it's a one-sided fiber-like surface. So that's why not specifically a fiber It has a fiber-like action which helps with the overall flow throughout the whole gastrointestinal system. Let's look at some of the incredible benefits of this alpha rice. There are almost too many to mention, but the many benefits that we've seen in clinical research and anecdotal studies were in so many testimonials were improved skin condition, improves mental vitality and circulation to the brain, and attention span as well. So we're going to have much more focus, much more presence, and much more energy to carry out our daily functions, assist in digestion and metabolism, which is a key component. If we're not metabolizing our food, we can be eating the best foods in the world, and they're still going to turn into toxins. Also improves bowel movements, whether it's diarrhea or constipation. It has a regulating function, which is key because you don't want it to be too stimulating and not stimulating enough. So it has just that right balance. Enhances hormonal function. You know, our body is run by enzymes for one, and also our hormones. You know, they create so many of the processes and regulate and control and direct so many processes in our body. And believe it or not, all those hormones require amino acids and, of course, energy to function. And that's why this alpha rice is so key, is because it provides these specific components in a bioavailable, readily utilized form so that it can carry out these functions. Improved sleep patterns. We've seen dramatic benefits, not only with enhanced sleep and deeper sleep, but also maybe needing less sleep because you have more energy and it's a more restful sleep. So it improves overall vitality and stamina. Also with depression, we've seen some very severe states of psychosis that have balanced and regulated from taking the alpha rice on a regular basis, because we're looking there at not only cellular function and energy, but also hormonal regulation, which leads to a lot of the psychological imbalances. And it has helped so much with respiratory conditions such as allergies and asthma. And in that effect, too, it's a wonderful formulation for the immune system. Now, unfortunately today, because of all the toxins in our environment, majority of people's immune systems are already overstimulated. They're working overtime. So we need to have something that tends to modulate it or regulate it as well. And that's why alpha rice is so beneficial, because it has this effect or this benefit of being able to regulate or moderate the immune system, so it's only kicked in when you need it, and when it's not, it's balanced so that you're not in a continuous state of what's called autoimmune disorders, where the body's continuously attacking itself. But you know what's most important of all to everybody, and we all want more energy. And the key benefit of alpha rice is it increases energy on a very stable, regulated level, rather than just a stimulant that's going to take you up and down. This is going to maintain your energy levels at an optimal level. A very beneficial aspect of the alpha rice is it helps to support insulin production and all the hormone production. Each one of these hormones actually requires certain peptides or amino acids for their production, and you've got to have the right form and the right ratios of these amino acids in order to form these hormones. Now, what happens if we're not metabolizing these nutrients properly? To make a long story short, and you can look at the slide here, if we have too much sugar that the cells are not utilizing properly, as I mentioned in Syndrome X, the cells are going to shut down. So what's going to happen to that sugar? It's going to be stored. Hopefully the body will go back someday and be able to access it for that fat for energy. But that's what happens. All these carbohydrates that we're consuming in our daily diet that aren't being metabolized or utilized properly, they're going right into the fat. Not functioning properly, we're getting a lot of free radical production, which leads to degenerative disease, and maybe producing an equivalent of maybe 2 ATP. Whereas when we do have all this functioning properly with the right amount of oxygen, what we get is about 36 ATP in this process, and that is significant. Another extremely beneficial aspect of the alpha rice is that it enhances DNA repair. Now, we all know that if we are not producing new healthy cells on a regular basis, what can happen is those cells may mutate. They become what are called mitogenic. Those are called cancer cells. Now, you've got to have the right communication. You need the energy to drive this whole process, but you have to have the right communication going on between the cells. This happens from through the messenger RNA to having the right form of amino acids. This is the key, that is the key component to this process happening, to form the transformer RNA, which is the message that tells the cell, okay, I want to be a healthy, vital, thriving cell. You know, I don't want to be a degenerate. You know, none of us want to be degenerates today, right? Now, as I mentioned, we have to have antioxidants in order to fight free radicals. What most people don't realize, in fact, they've just determined, I just learned this recently myself, is that we can only utilize maybe up to 20% maximum of the antioxidants that we orally consume. You know, it's a big market today. I mean, you hear about take these antioxidants, the A, the E, the C, and certain amino acids. That's only 20% of the body's need. You know where the other 80% has to come from? We have to produce it ourselves. Now, what produces antioxidants? Well, the majority of this goes on in the liver and the villi and also the lung, but we have to have three main components. Those are amino acids called glutamine, cysteine, and glycine. And guess where they come from? They are a highly bioavailable form in alpha rice. So it's been shown that we can produce an incredible amount of antioxidants through consumption of alpha rice. To prove this, I mean, the problem today is there's so much hype out there on nutraceuticals and vitamins and such about what they can do, but there's very little research to back it up. What I want to say about alpha rice is that it has very scientific research to prove the efficacy and the benefit of consumption and using this alpha rice. A study I did several years ago with multiple sclerosis patients, which is a neurological disorder which can be totally debilitating and, of course, life-threatening. Now, we were doing what are called oxidative stress profiles, which is a test that shows the free radical versus the antioxidant levels. When I sent in the follow-up test, we did a pre and post. When I sent in the follow-up test 30 days after these patients were taking the alpha rice, the lab called me and said, Dr. Smith, I'm afraid we have some inaccurate results here, and you're going to have to run the test over. And I said, well, what's the problem here? Said, well, the SOD, which is superoxide dismutase, which is probably the foremost antioxidant in our body, said it's off the charts. He said it's doubled and even tripled. And well, let's go ahead and let's run the rest and let's see what happened. They were astonished. Consistently with every oxidative stress profile that we ran 30 days after the pre-test, the SOD levels were doubled, and even tripled. And that shows that these individuals, even with a compromised digestive system, with this neurological disorder, they were able to increase their SOD levels twofold to threefold. Imagine what a good healthy person can do in order to be able to maintain that healthy state. Scientific research that's been performed with this product. There's one particular study I would like to share with you that was done through Emory University School of Medicine in Atlanta, Georgia. It was an in vitro study utilizing basically brain cells. It's the cells that are used in the majority of Alzheimer's studies done today. Now, what they did, just to make it very brief, is they took the brain cells and they subjected them to the three most potent neurotoxins known to the brain cells. These are the beta amyloids, which are now finding to be the major plaques, protein plaques, by the way, that the body has not recognized or utilizing, that tend to clog the cells in the brain so they do not function or regenerate properly. The glutamates and hydrogen peroxide. Now, when they took these three neurotoxins and subjected them to these brain cells, what they had was 100% cell death. They cannot survive in these neurotoxins. So what they did was they took these brain cells and they bathed them in the alpha rice. Now, this is what would happen if you were consuming the alpha rice on a daily basis. You'd be bathing your cells, not only the brain cells, but the cells throughout your whole body in this substance. Now, here's what happened. Whenever they took these cells, they bathed it in the alpha rice, then they subjected the neurotoxins to these cells. Not only did they see total protection of these cells at a very, very high level, but they also saw regeneration of cells that had been compromised. They saw regeneration of the axons and dendrites, which are the key linkages or components that create the communication from one cell to the other, that send the messages, that activate them, that get the cells functioning properly, which was phenomenal. They couldn't believe it. Nothing they'd ever seen before had this capability. So they're wondering, well, why is this happening? What is it about this powder, this rice extract powder of polysaccharides, polypeptides, that can have such an amazing effect on the cells? Not only protection, but regeneration. So they did further studies, and they used what is called an MTT colorimeter. This instrument actually measures the energy level of the cells themselves. We're looking at mitochondrial function, which is the source of energy production in the cells themselves. Everything else they tested when the cells were compromised by these neurotoxins, which our brain cells are constantly compromised by chemicals in our environment, and those we produce ourselves. Now, what this MTT colorimeter measures is the actual cell vitality, or the energy level of the cell themselves, the mitochondrial function. And what they found was that these cells that had been compromised by these neurotoxins, anything else they tested, they actually saw a zero level of energy. The cells were dying and dead and weren't producing energy. They were on their way down rather than their way up. Now, what just astounded them is when they used the alpha rice, they found a 54% increase in this energy level of the cell, or what's called mitochondrial function. And then they realized that this is the key. The whole essence of this is that the alpha rice is not only providing the polysaccharides, or the carbohydrates, that the cell needs for energy production, but also the right form and ratio and the right type of amino acids, or what are called polypeptides, in order to be able to enhance the overall function of those 3 to 4 trillion cells that you have in your body. And they're constantly doing their work. They're constantly regenerating. So that's what is so powerful and so unique to the alpha rice, is how it can provide this to your body. Now, there's so many testimonials we've had that it's just way too numerous to mention. But we've seen wonderful results with everything from diabetes to individuals getting off insulin altogether, to cardiovascular disease, where we did some anecdotal clinical studies that showed that it not only decreases the bad cholesterol, the LDL and the VLDL, but like nothing else that is known, in fact, there's no drug that can do this, it increases the beneficial cholesterol, the HDL. Everybody needs to realize that cholesterol is not all bad. In fact, it's essential. It's essential for production of hormones and enzymes in our body, which run every function. But also in neurological diseases such as Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, and particularly Alzheimer's. None of us want to lose our brains. You know, we want to keep functional. We want to function optimally up there, because that runs so many other processes. And it's so compromised these days by so many factors. And also, there was in particular, I'd like to tell you about a diabetic gangrene, which in most cases results in individuals having to resort to an amputation. When one of our clinics, this professor of engineering came in.
Universal Marketing, çağdaş ürünler sunar.